So picture this. You've been handed the keys to a rapidly expanding empire, and it's your job to build its entire financial system. That was the reality for the third Caliph, Uthman ibn Affan. Today, we're going to unpack his economic blueprint, and it's this incredible system where justice, wealth, and faith are all woven together into one cohesive design.
Now, when Uthman took charge, he didn't just come in and tear everything up. No, his financial strategy was basically a continuation of what his predecessor, Omar, had put in place. This was all about evolution, not a total revolution. But, and this is a big but, while the foundation was the same, the whole vibe, the feeling of the era, was about to change in a major way. You see, the time before Uthman was known for being pretty strict. The system was set up to really discourage people from piling up huge personal fortunes. But under Uthman, that all shifted. It became known as a time of ease where, for the first time, people could really acquire land and build their own wealth. So what did that actually mean for society, and how on earth do you manage that kind of change? Okay, so to really get our heads around this, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the caliph's overall blueprint. Then, we'll dig into its divine foundation, which is key. After that, we'll see how they balanced collecting money with taking care of people, how justice worked for everyone, and we'll wrap up with the sacred trust that was at the heart of leadership itself. All right, let's jump right in. What were the big ideas, the core principles that were shaping this entire financial policy?
Well, this system wasn't just made up on the fly. It was all guided by some really clear principles. The main goal was to strike this super important balance. Yeah, you gotta collect the state's dues, but you can't do it in a way that hurts the well-being of the people. It meant running the public treasury for everybody, picking collectors who were honest, and stamping out corruption. Simple ideas, but hard to execute.
So that's the what. But what about the why? Where did all these principles come from? I mean, they weren't just brainstormed in a meeting. They were rooted in something way, way deeper. And this is the absolute key to understanding the whole thing. The entire economic framework wasn't just a good idea, it was seen as a direct command. Uthman's job was to govern based on what was in the Qur'an and how the Prophet Muhammad had done things. This spiritual foundation is everything. You have to get this to get the rest. Let me give you an example. A big chunk of the state's income came from war booty. This verse from the Qur'an lays out the rule of the homs, a flat 1/5 that had to go straight to the public treasury. And look who it's for. It's not just for the government, it's specifically earmarked for the most vulnerable people, orphans, the poor, and travelers who are stuck. And you see the exact same logic with charity or zakah. Its purpose was spelled out, crystal clear. This wasn't just some general slush fund. It was a highly structured welfare system with 8 specific groups of people who could receive it, like the poor, people in debt, and even to free captives. This is literally a divinely mandated social safety net. And this one, wow, this verse gives us the ethical core for all of it. Leadership, public money, the power to make judgments. All of it is described as a sacred trust, a trust that you have to give back properly by being just. This idea basically becomes the moral compass for every single person working in the government. Okay, so that's the divine why, but what about the practical how? How did they actually pull it off? How did they balance bringing in revenue with making sure people were okay? Well, the heart of the whole operation was a place called the Beit al-Mal, the public treasury. Honestly, you can think of it as the central bank, the Treasury Department, and the Social Security Administration all rolled into one. All the money came in, and all the public spending, from soldiers' pay to welfare checks, went out from here. And Uthman made one thing absolutely clear to all his governors. He told them, look, your number one job is not to fill up the treasury. Your primary duty is the welfare of the people. Collecting wealth can never, ever get in the way of that. I mean, that's a pretty powerful statement about what your priorities should be as a leader.
And this really shows you that managing the money was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, right? The Caliph's job description was huge. Uphold the faith, judge fairly, protect the community, secure the borders, collect taxes reasonably, pay people on time, and hire good, honest officials. It was this complete, holistic vision for a just society.
So that brings up a huge question. How did this system work for everybody, including the non-Muslims living under Islamic rule? The answer is pretty profound. And it all comes down to a commitment to justice for all. So to get this, we need to know about 2 key taxes. First, there was the jizyah, which was a tax paid by non-Muslims in return for state protection and being exempt from fighting in the army. And second, the kharaj, which was a tax on farmland. But it's how they collected these taxes that tells the real story.
So take that land tax, the kharaj. This was not some simple flat tax. No way. It was this really sophisticated system built to be fair. Collectors had to look at 4 things: the quality of the land, what kind of crop was growing, how it was watered, and here's the most important part. They were told to always leave enough behind for the farmers to survive, especially through tough times like famines. The goal wasn't to squeeze every last penny, it was about a sustainable, just partnership. And again, built right into the system was this intense focus on the most vulnerable. We saw it in the scripture, and it was put into practice. Orphans had guaranteed rights, period. They had a right to a share of charity, a right to a share of the homes, and a right to a stipend from the treasury. The state was designed to take care of them.
And that brings us to our final section, which is all about the ethical glue that held this entire thing together. It's a concept that really gets to the soul of what public service was all about. You have to hear this. This is a direct teaching from the Prophet Muhammad, and it's just staggering. He said that on the day of judgment, he himself would be the opponent of anyone who wronged a non-Muslim citizen or burdened them with more than they could handle. I mean, think about that. Could you set a higher standard for justice and protection? It's almost unimaginable.
This all comes back to that core idea of amana, the sacred trust. For every single public official, from the caliph at the very top to the local guy collecting taxes, their job wasn't seen as a position of power. It was a position of profound moral and spiritual responsibility. That public wealth wasn't theirs. It was a trust that they were commanded to manage with total honesty and justice.
So when we step back and look at this 7th century blueprint, what are the big takeaways? I think there are 3 ideas that are just as powerful today. 1, economic justice has to be baked into the system from the start to stop oppression. 2, transparency with public money isn't optional. And 3, real leadership demands empathy, a real built-in concern for the most vulnerable people in society.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. In our modern world, which is struggling so much with inequality and financial scandals, what can these ancient principles of justice, transparency, and empathy, all rooted in a divine framework, what can they teach our leaders, and maybe even ourselves, today?